Hey y'all, welcome to number 5. There's been 5 episodes so far. Thank you to those who've been with me for 5 episodes. And to the new subscribers, welcome. This is not a very flashy channel. This isn't going to be fancy. This isn't going to be wild. This is a simple school to teach you the mystery school philosophy. This is even though this isn't the school of masonry, like you're not going to the Masons, for example, this is the similar kind of stuff that they deal with, presumably. I've never been a Mason. I went through the mystery schools of Odin. And so everything I do is kind of filtered through that. But all of this is really universal. So the stuff you're learning here will carry over quite effectively to anything else you want to use it on. So the 4 elements are one of those things that aren't super sexy, but I can't talk. Nevertheless, are important to understand. Because without understanding this particular philosophy, without understanding what they actually mean and what they represent, understanding symbology and the way that symbols are actually put together and the way that they actually communicate will largely be lost. A lot of the things that we see in symbology are based on this concept and are... You just won't be able to really understand a lot of the goodies that you're seeing without first understanding this. So this video is mostly a preamble to get us into the symbolism side of things. So I hope you stick with me, because if you do, you'll get a lot out of this. This will completely change the way you see symbolism. And then when you go to see your Illuminati videos online on YouTube, you'll know stuff that the average Joe YouTuber won't. So stick with me. This is good stuff, even if it's not super flashy. Okay, let's begin. Start with my cup of coffee, because I feel like I have to have coffee in order to do this. So the problem that modern society has with the ancients is that they assume that they're dumb. Well, there's a few assumptions, actually. The first assumption is that they're stupid and they didn't know what they're talking about. The second assumption, which is kind of based off of the first assumption, is that they perceive the world and observe the universe in the same way we observe the world and see the universe. Modern man, from the Christians to the heathens to our, the Old Norse to the North, the religions of the North. Man, I can't talk today. I apologize. Sorry. I'm not going to edit this out. I try really hard not to edit these. The Catholic Church, to all of them. Society tends to see the world and the creation as primarily a physical creation. And if there is a God or gods or a spiritual world out there, it exists as a minority, as like a little sideshow to a mostly physical, primarily physical creation. We have a very naturalistic view of the way we see creation in the universe. The gods exist in a little piece just outside of this. But the ancients didn't have that. They saw the world in a completely different way. They saw the world as a primarily and almost exclusively spiritual. The universe was almost primarily spiritual, but us here in matter are the outlier. We're the odd ones out, which is why, again, this is why we say that we're from the underworld. I can't get much more into that today, but that's part of it. That they understood that man, even way back then, they understood that that amount of light and sound a human can perceive is infinitesimal to the great expanse of sound and light that is perceivable to anything else. To literally every other creature can see more light and hear more sound than we can. So, and this plays into like astrotheology and whether or not the planets are alive, and all of that is all based on this particular idea that most of what is out there is invisible to us. So it is said that the interred spirit, us, we are blind. We're blinded. We're deaf. We're deaf and dumb to the actual realities of the universe. Because we can't see what is actually out there. And so that is the ethos of the way that the ancients saw creation. They saw themselves as a very, very small outlier to what is actually there. So the four elements are not trying to measure elemental forces the same way a naturalistic scientific point of view would. The science today, which is called scientism, which is like religion as a science. Scientism is science as a religion, right? As a worldview. Science as a worldview. They would say that they see the elements as just measuring, little pieces of rock and things that are unique to anything else. The ancients didn't see that. They saw the four elements as a symbol to illustrate different places on that energetic continuum. So you have Earth, which is at the very bottom. Earth vibrates the very slowest. Matter of fact, Earth vibrates so slow that light can't escape. Which is why being buried in Earth is so bad. This is why part of the philosophy of us being in the underworld is that our light, our spirit, is interred in Earth. We always hear that mankind as described as being clay. This is partly why that is. Our bodies are an admixture of earth and water. Earth and water. That's where that symbolism comes from. And this is why we got to go through this first, because a lot of this stuff is lost if you don't understand this piece of it. Okay. So Earth vibrates the slowest and light can't escape it. It's like when the Christians say putting your light under a bushel. You're interred, you're buried, your light is... You can't see it. Water vibrates faster than Earth. In fact, you can even... If you up the vibration of Earth, you could actually turn solid matter into a liquid. It happens all the time. They do it all the time in the lab. So water vibrates faster than Earth, but it doesn't vibrate fast enough to leave Earth. It still falls to the ground. But it vibrates fast enough that light can start to escape. You could kind of start to see light coming out of the substance. it starts reflecting light. You could see the effects of light around it. And then when you start to raise the temperature, you start to make the vibration of water rise, then it starts to boil and turns into a gas. It starts turning into air, which is the next element. Air vibrates faster than water. Air flies. There's like a little magic delineation, a secret line that's drawn that delineates the things that fall to earth and the things that fly. The things that fly, air and light, are said to be things of gnosis, where light could spring free. You could see the light. It's no longer interred anymore. It is free. You breathe free air again. So, but what happens when you start going even further? What happens when you start to vibrate things even faster? You start creating, you start going in from the land of air into the land of fire. And why fire is important is because fire, it vibrates so fast that it, instead of making just physical changes, it actually makes a chemical change to the object. Right. When you burn a wood in a fireplace, there's so much heat and it goes so fast that it no longer becomes wood anymore. It changes into carbon. A complete and total transformation of the object. Which is why this is where we get the philosophy of the Sorcerer's Stone. This is where we get the philosophy of alchemy, mental alchemy especially, where you turn lead into gold. This is where you get the philosophy of seeing the light. All the times you see light and transformation and hiding your light under a bushel and all of those things are based on the fact that when light happens, gnosis happens. You're no longer the thing you once were. You have been transformed into something else. And that happens at the point where combustion happens, where there's energy transfer, where things are no longer the same. There's something completely different. So at the bottom, like I said, you have Earth, which is the lowest. No light can escape. You have water, which vibrates faster, which some light can escape, but you're still fallen. You're still in a fallen state. You're still stuck on the ground. And then you cross the dotted line, which is called the firmament in Christian mythology. There's that dotted line, and the things that are above the firmament are in the heavens. The things that dwell in the sky. Then you have things like air, and then you have fire above that. Does that make sense? So, when you have symbolism, then when you start observing symbols, everything is based on this philosophy, this way of viewing the world. So you have things like snakes and horses, and you have the Baphomet with his cloven foot. You have all of these things. Things that dwell on the earth are things that have fallen. They can't leave. They're not. They can't fly. They're not in the heavens. They're not enlightened. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're not enlightened. They're earth dwellers. They belong to the underworld. So that's why there's a lot of symbolism of snakes, especially. We talked in the last video about the Ouroboros, the snake that eats its own tail. Why is that important? Why is the snake important? Why was the snake chosen for that symbol? It's not on accident. Because the snake is time, and time is the province of the things that fall, the things that are stuck on the ground, that can't escape. They're still bound by gravity, because they vibrate so slow that they can't escape anymore. And then on the same token, things that fly, symbols that fly, represent the things that have broken the barrier of gravity and are no longer bound to the underworld. So things that fly are things like with wings. You have winged serpents, you have dragons, you have winged horses. Odin, a very common picture of Odin. He has a helmet with wings on it. All right. You have you have Sleipnir, who rides up and down the world tree, who gets to leave. Right? That's another one. You have Odin's ravens with wings. The wings are important. That means that they leave. It means that they represent something that's higher than that plane of delineation. Okay. Which is what, so I know this video isn't going to be very long, but this is just something that needs to be said. You can't, there's no understanding a lot of this other stuff without first understanding this arcanum of symbology. So, like we could use the Christian example, for example. Jesus dies. He dies. He goes to the underworld, and so he's entombed. He's entombed, right? He's wrapped in cloth, and he's buried. He's in the underworld now. But on the third day, Jesus rises again. Mary comes up to the tomb. The tomb is empty. And the angel appears before Mary, and the angel says, "Why do you search for the living among the dead?" It's because Jesus is no longer earthbound anymore. He's gone up into the sky. He's reached gnosis. He's past that dotted line. He's now to the point of being able to fly. Right? We see this all the time. We see this ability all the time. Being able to leave Earth means I have gnosis. And then when we talk about enlightenment, this is kind of my last point. Enlightenment is when you have reached the point of light, of transformation, is what it's supposed to mean. People throw enlightenment around willy-nilly, saying, "Oh, I'm enlightened because I feel spiritual." No, just feeling spiritual doesn't make you an enlightened being. An enlightened being is a very specific state, is a very specific place. And being enlightened means that you are creating light within yourself. And scientists are kind of getting to the point now where they could actually take pictures of your electromagnetic field and the things that are happening in the brain. And when your brain is creating light, you're enlightened, then you've reached a place of the fabric of Earth changes, where you're no longer bound here. You could actually leave your body. You could go someplace else. You're no longer stuck in your internment. You aren't anchored anymore. You've seen the Masons have a very famous symbol of the anchor. It's kind of what that, well, at least that's what I assume it means. I'm not a Mason, but you're no longer like stuck. Okay, I know I'm 20 minutes. I know it's not like super extensive, but it needed to be covered. So I could show you. I'll probably actually put it up here. Let's take a look here. All right. So I show this a lot. This is the Masons. They have the 33 steps, right? They have the 33 degrees. We have this. we actually have 9 degrees up here. 9 is the symbol of Odin. You pass the symbol of Odin, and now you're in fire. Right here. You're in fire. You're at transformation. Below Odin, below number 9, so you can see here, you're in air. Below him, where the losing of your eye, where you get one eye from, we'll probably cover that at some video, happens here in the water, the Mimir's well. And then down here in the underworld, you'll see that it is, in fact, Earth. This is where the people who dwell on Earth are. They live in the dualistic system, where they're not unified anymore. So, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm glad if you stuck with it. I am very grateful that you stuck with it and kind of got to understand where a lot of this comes from. I know it's not super sexy, but this is the point. These videos are for the serious student. There's a lot of people out there who want to scare you and who want to make wild claims about what the Illuminati or the Masons or try and fear and scare people into, hating wisdom traditions, and I'm not about that. Is it true that there's assholes in wisdom traditions? Absolutely. There's absolutely people who take the stuff that we cover in here and are going to use that against other people to try and make slaves for themselves. And there's a possibility that some of you will do the same thing, but we're willing to take the risk. Which is why I'm doing this. I'm doing this for the one person in 1,000 who will hear what I'm saying and who will know that this isn't just words. For most people, these will just be words. But for a few people, there's a few people out there who will internalize this and understand it and will be able to take it and use it. And so now, in the next video, maybe 2, I'll even create a whole new channel. Well, not a whole new channel, a whole new, it'll be a playlist of specifically symbology and how symbology works. And you have to understand these 4 elements before you can really understand the symbology point of it, because the way the symbols are oriented is directly based on this very thing that we're talking about. So I love you guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you like these. These are a brand new channel. We want to get lots of subscribers so more people could see this information and we have more of an opportunity to set people free. And don't forget to leave a comment or with a question if you have any questions. This is a really new channel. There's not a lot of comments. So if you leave a comment, I could actually answer it, especially at this stage. So, all right, my friends, I love you, and I'll talk to you later.